What if I told you everything about coronavirus you know and you've been hearing is a lie? Well, stay tuned and find out the truth. Cue ominous music. Actually, I'm doing it all wrong. What's up, everyone? I'm Dr. Giancarlo. Yes, I am a plastic surgeon. No, I am not an expert in immunology, infectious diseases, or coronavirus. What I am is a concerned doctor, and what I'm concerned about is the spread of misinformation. This is getting more and more common. I'm sure, as you know, on your own Facebook and social media feeds, you're seeing conspiracy theories, you're seeing experts, you're seeing videos that your friends and family are sharing, and you really don't know who to believe. And I'm not here to say, believe me. Is every piece of evidence you come across, you need to use three techniques, that I use to evaluate them. So the video I'm going to be reviewing to highlight these 3 points today is this one. It is called Plandemic Part 1 by Dr. Judy Mikovits. And why it's important and why I'm choosing to review it is not because I have anything against Judy Mikovits. This is just the most recent conspiracy theory style video that I've been sent by my friends and followers. And I thought it was time to finally address them. Number one, I look at who the person is that's telling me this information. So I'm gonna use this first technique when Judy introduces herself, and I'm gonna do some research on who is this Judy Mikovits. The second thing is I look at the source. So who is actually providing this video, or who made this video, or where did this video come from? Conspiracy theorists, they don't believe the mainstream media. I get it. They don't believe CNN. They don't believe Fox News. They don't know what to believe. And I understand, especially in a time of a global pandemic where, number one, the information is not all known. No one can claim to know everything about the coronavirus. It's a new virus. Also, the information is changing. So what they said about masks a month ago is not what they're saying about masks today. That is kind of due to the fact that as you get more information, your opinion should change. And that's okay. It's okay to be wrong about things at the beginning when you don't have that much information. It's not okay to continue being wrong in the face of new evidence. And the third and last thing is actually looking at the evidence. So what is the claim that's being made? What is the person actually saying, and does it hold up when you do a simple check of the facts? I'm not saying that every time someone says anything, you have to Google it or you have to fact check every single thing. But I do think it's important when someone's making an outrageous claim or something that no one is agreeing with in terms of the regular scientific community, then those are the things that need to be checked. Now, this video has racked up a lot of views, Plandemic Part 1. And Judy Mikovits, and it's pretty well produced, and most of the videos that I usually review are not this well produced and not this logical. They're kind of rambling and they go off on tangents. So I'm gonna try and break this video down, and I'm gonna fast forward. I can't do all of it. It's a 25-minute video, and I'm not a professional editor or professional YouTuber, so let's go. Okay, so fair use. I can use this video. Anyone can use this video. That's good to know. So some ominous music
Dr.
to start off.
Judy Mikovits has been
Always
called
love
one of
it.
the most accomplished scientists of her generation.
Really?
Her 1991 doctoral thesis revolutionized the treatment of HIV/AIDS.
Really?
At the height of her career, Dr.
Okay.
Mikovits published a blockbuster article in the journal Science.
Okay,
The controversial
2009 article in
sent shockwaves
Science.
through the scientific community as it revealed that the common use of animal and human fetal tissues were unleashing devastating plagues of chronic diseases.
Okay, so a lot to process, and it's only been 37 seconds. So number one, she's the greatest scientist of her generation. Okay, that is kind of crazy. Dr. Giancarlo McKevin, the greatest plastic surgeon of his generation. Cue the laser. But whatever. She also, they allude to this groundbreaking research, what I'm going to get to, in 2009 in Science, and they're saying it sent shockwaves through the community. Yes, it sent shockwaves because it made a claim that no one has been able to replicate, and I'm going to get to that.
And so what did they charge you with?
Nothing.
But you were in jail.
I was held in jail with no charges. I was called a fugitive from justice.
You said witnesses.
No warrant. Literally drugged me out of the house. Our neighbors are looking at what's going on here. They searched my house without a warrant. Literally terrorized my husband for 5 days. They said, if you don't find the notebooks, if you don't find the material, which was not in my possession but planted.
Okay, so she's making some claims fast and furious, and it's kind of hard to keep up with her. But basically what I did is I just did a Google search of Judy Mikovits, and I just did Wikipedia. I know it's not the best source, but I don't know who this person is. So I'm going to do some fact checking, and that's point number one. You want to know who you are. So Judy Mikovits, she's an American health activist and former medical researcher. She's a PhD, not a medical doctor, and she's made claims about vaccines, coronavirus, and chronic fatigue syndrome. 2009, that a retrovirus was associated with chronic fatigue syndrome. This was a blockbuster finding at the time because chronic fatigue syndrome has no known cause. So they were trying to link this virus with chronic fatigue syndrome. It was a blockbuster finding. However, her research came under fire because no one could replicate it, and the Science Medical Journal made her research group retract the findings. So just to lay people who have never published before, basically the editor of the journal is responsible for its content. And if the research is found to be faked or fraudulent or untrue, the journal pulls the article out of publication and issues a retraction and explains what happened and why. So because of, this is a fact, so because of her research was falsified and believed to be fraudulent, and you can read over here, you can read this on either Snopes, and you can find the actual science journal where they issue the reason for the retraction right here. Because of this, she was actually fired from her job. So she was a researcher at this WPI Institute, and the WPI Institute was a new institute at the time that was looking into chronic fatigue syndrome. And so imagine you're in this institute and you hire this amazing researcher, Dr. Mikovits, who's going to help you find the causes of CFS. And you find that your darling star researcher has falsified their data and really embarrassed the entire institute. So they fired her. That makes logic sense to me. You don't need some big pharma conspiracy. She falsified her data. So next, a few months later, where this story gets really interesting, is she was arrested. And so I had to look up the arrest report because she was arrested 5 days later in her California home and jailed for 5 days. She was arrested on charges of theft. So what the charges actually say, and I'll link the arrest report, and there's actually a Chicago Tribune article. And so the arrest warrant issued by the University of Nevada police listed 2 felony charges. So she was actually charged. So she says she wasn't charged. She was charged with possession of stolen property and unlawful taking of computer data, equipment, supplies, and other computer-related property. So basically what we have is a disgruntled employee, because remember, she was employed by the workplace, is stealing either the notebooks, the research, and the computer where this research foundation had paid for. It's their property. It's like when you leave your workplace, you can't just take things because you got fired. That's not the way the world works. So her company charged her with theft. And so she's here in her video acting like the victim. Now we're only 2 minutes into this video, and this is what I found just with a simple Google search of her name. And so she's failed on number one. She has already, in my opinion, no scientific credibility. Her research is fraudulent. She may or may not be a thief. She was charged with theft. She never, it looks like the charges were dropped, but she was charged with a crime, and she's denying it here. So, it's one thing to be charged, admit that you were charged for something, and deny it, but she's saying she actually wasn't charged with anything, which is not true. And she's also making it seem like her research wasn't retracted for being false, which it was.
Intellectual property from the laboratory. Is
Yes.
that correct?
It was intended to appear as if I took confidential material names and intellectual property from the laboratory. And I could prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that I didn't.
So she is claiming right here in the video that the evidence was planted in her house. So the police took her research notebooks and computers and planted them in her house to arrest her for faking research. That's what you have to believe if you want to believe her. To me, a much more likely story is she faked her research, she got fired for faking her research, and as part of her firing, she was upset at getting fired, as most people would. She stole the computers from her work and took the research from her work. Now, do I know the whole story? No, but I definitely don't believe her version of it.
Yes, colluded and destroy my reputation, and the Department of Justice and the FBI sat on it and kept that case under seal, which means you can't say there's a case, or your lawyers are held in contempt of court. So you can't even get a lawyer to defend you. So every single due process right was taken away.
I'm not a legal expert. I'm not going to go into, sealed versus unsealed. It just seems like you got to believe a lot of crazy things, like the entire NHS, the entire, medical establishment is against this one researcher, or she lied and faked her research, and that's really what happened. So, she's basically saying the editors of Science and all these other scientists who checked her research, who found that it was not credible, are wrong.
From me, and to this day remains the same. I have no constitutional freedoms or rights.
So again, this is a bold claim that she's making. She has no constitutional freedoms or rights, and yet she's publishing books, she's making videos, and she is exhibiting her right to free speech. So again, she's making a claim that does not bear to the obvious facts. She is free to do whatever she wants, and she was free not to fake her research, which she did, and then she's paying the punishment for that.
Yet you sit here. I think a lot of people would probably have just taken the retirement out early, laid low, but you have decided to come forth when your gag order has been released to write a book called Plague of Corruption, Restoring Faith in the Promise of Science, and you are naming names.
I don't even need to read the book, but the title is hilarious. Restoring faith in science from someone who fakes science. It's like, am I taking crazy pills?
Absolutely.
Apparently, their attempt to silence you has failed. And I have to ask, how do you sit here with confidence to call out these great forces and not fear for your life as you leave this building?
Because if we don't stop this now, we can not only forget our republic and our freedom, but we can forget humanity, because we'll be killed by this agenda.
So again, some mysterious threats about stopping this and stopping their agenda. So all that I know about her so far is that she's been stopped from promoting her lies in a reputable scientific journal. She has not been stopped from making these kind of videos and making these kind of books. So she's been free to do whatever she wants. She has freedom of speech. Just the problem is when she tries to make herself into some world famous scientist, she is not. She is a discredited scientist, discredited from her own community.
So Anthony Fauci,
My name is Dr. Tony Fauci. I'm the director.
the man who is heading the pandemic task force, was involved in a cover-up.
He directed the cover-up. And in fact, everybody else was paid off, and paid off big time. Millions of dollars in funding from Tony Fauci's organization, National Institute of Allergy and Infectious
So
Disease.
here again, it's like ominous, shadowy accusations of millions of dollars being paid by Tony Fauci. I guess he's a millionaire, and his institution to silence people. She hasn't been silenced, so I don't really understand what she's talking about or believe it. It's basically he said, she said from someone who has a known history of being dishonest.
These investigators that committed the fraud continue to this day to be paid big time by the NIAID.
And the whole world is listening to his advice for how to handle this current pandemic. How do we know that what he's saying is what we need to be learning?
What he's saying is absolute propaganda, and the same kind of propaganda that he's perpetrated to kill millions since 1984.
So this is a doozy, okay? Dr. Fauci is a very trusted news source because he's an expert immunologist and infectious disease expert. He's been doing this since the 1980s in HIV/AIDS, and he's actually the most trusted person in the face of this current administration. Now, she just makes a really bold claim that the director of the response to coronavirus is responsible for the deaths of millions of people, and everything he's saying is false, or she used the word propaganda. And I think propaganda is a really good word to use for this video. It is a video that's using ominous music, shadowy threats and accusation to scare people into believing her message. Dr. Fauci does not do that. Anyone who's watched Dr. Fauci's news briefing or listened to him on CNN can immediately see the difference between Dr. Fauci and Dr. Mikovits. Dr. Mikovits believes in grand conspiracy theories. Everyone's against her. She's a genius scientist whose falsified research is only due to the big pharmaceutical industries, whereas Fauci is logical, humble, understated, and an expert. And every time he speaks, I feel comfort that if this is the man in charge of the coronavirus response, we're doing a good job, or we're going to be okay.
It started really when I was 25 years old. I was part of the team that isolated HIV from the saliva and blood of the patients from France, where Luc Montagnier had originally isolated the virus.
Okay, next she's claiming to be like a key member of people who discovered HIV. That's like nowhere on the Wikipedia. I couldn't find that anywhere when I was doing my Google research. I think the only person that claims she's an HIV expert is herself and her own books. Whereas Anthony Fauci actually is an HIV expert, and you can just do a simple search on Anthony Fauci, and he was really instrumental in the efforts to research HIV, protect the public, and help find treatments for HIV. She's really making a claim here that isn't supported by the evidence.
Tony Fauci says, we understand that you have a paper in press and we want a copy of it. And I said, yes, there's a paper in press and it's confidential, and no, I will not give you a copy of it. He started screaming at me, then he said, give us the paper right now or you'll be fired for insubordination. And I just said, I'm sure when Dr. Rossetti gets back, you can have the conversation. And so Frank comes back, several weeks later, and is really bullied into giving Fauci the paper. Fauci holds up the publication of the paper for several months while Robert Gallo writes his own paper and takes all the credit. And of course, patents are involved. This delay of the confirmation, literally led to spreading the virus around, killing millions.
Okay, let me get this straight. So, if I've been following correctly, she's claiming that a paper she was in the process of publishing got held up by Dr. Fauci, and because that paper was held up, millions of people died, and then someone else took credit for the paper. That's what she's saying. Number one, what paper? She doesn't say. Number two, prove it. And number three, you're accusing Dr. Fauci of killing millions of people. To me, that's an outrageous claim, and you need evidence if you're going to make such a claim. The lack of evidence is not evidence, and that is the biggest flaw with conspiracy theories. They always say, well, there is no evidence. You're just taking this proven liar's word for something, though. The lack of evidence is not evidence. And so you're calling someone a mass murderer with no evidence. What paper?
To think that I didn't know my work in 1999 was something that had been avoided. From 83 and 82, when the virus was isolated, the virus didn't have to wait until 84 to be confirmed. Think of how many people, the entire continent of Africa, lost a generation as that virus was spread through because of the arrogance of a group of people, and it includes Robert Redfield, who's now the head of the CDC. Right along with Tony Fauci. They were working together to take credit and make money, and they had the patent.
So she is making, again, more bold claims about HIV, but where are her publications? Where is her evidence? She's saying these individuals hid or were in the wrong direction with HIV research just because of patents and because of millions of dollars, which sounds kind of like just connecting mysterious dots. And she's very upset about it. Obviously, she's passionate, she's a good speaker, but there's no evidence here. The lack of evidence is no evidence. Show me the evidence.
Discoveries. So to claim intellectual property for discoveries that the taxpayer paid for. Ever since that happened in the early 80s, it destroyed science.
So she kind of goes into a long thing about patent law and how it destroyed science. That's not true. Science is still going strong. Last time I checked.
In fact, there's one thing that actually does destroy science, and that's when scientists fake fraudulent data, something that Dr. Mikovits has been proven guilty of.
And this is the crime behind letting somebody like Bill Gates with billions of dollars. Nobody elected him. He has no medical background. He has no expertise. But we let people like that have a voice in this country while we destroy the lives of millions of.
So next she attacks Bill Gates, who I actually think is a very good Samaritan for donating billions of his fortune to help people in Africa and around the world. I think he's a very bright guy, and I think his intentions are good, but people can think about him whatever they want. But she's funny. She attacks him that he wasn't elected, he wasn't appointed, and he has no medical knowledge. But she's just finished attacking Fauci, who was appointed and does have medical knowledge. So what is it? Are we going to attack all non-scientists for helping, or are we going to attack all scientists? You're just attacking them because it happens to fit your particular agenda, which is that you are the greatest researcher apparently ever, discover the cure for AIDS, and now you're being persecuted. So, this is getting pretty painful to watch, but I'm doing this for you guys.
I imagine these people stand to make hundreds of billions of dollars that own the vaccines.
And they'll kill millions, as they already have with their vaccines.
So at 9:45, she literally says, vaccines kill millions of people. This is not true. And this is why when you're watching these videos and they're just throwing claim after claim after claim, it can get very exhausting and upsetting to watch. And if you're not fact-checking, as I'm, Googling what she's saying, or, from medical knowledge, I know vaccines save lives. Serious diseases like polio have been almost eradicated because of vaccine. Polio used to kill millions of people. So, this statement alone just shows how anti-science this Dr. Mikovits is, okay? Vaccines do not kill millions of people. I don't know, I can't repeat that. It's a lie.
So I have to ask you, are you anti-vaccine?
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, vaccine is immune therapy, just like interferon alpha is immune therapy. So I'm not anti-vaccine. My job is to develop immune therapies. That's what vaccines are.
So right after she says vaccines kill millions of people, she says, I am not anti-vaccine. My job is to create vaccines. So nowhere in her autobiography or Wikipedia or news could I find where she's created a vaccine. She does not create vaccines. So again, she's saying one thing and then claiming the opposite within a space of a minute.
Do you believe that this virus was created in a laboratory?
I wouldn't use the word created, but you can't say naturally occurring if it was by way of the laboratory. So it's very clear this virus was manipulated, this family of viruses was manipulated and studied in a laboratory where the animals were taken into the laboratory, and this is what was released, whether deliberate or not. That cannot be naturally occurring. Somebody didn't go to a market, get a bat, the virus didn't jump directly to humans. That's not how it works. That's accelerated viral evolution. If it was a natural occurrence, it would take it up to 800 years to occur. This occurred from SARS-1 within a decade. That's not naturally occurring.
Okay, so he asked her a pretty good question. Was this created in a lab? And she basically dodges around the answer and then it describes exactly the process of something being created in a lab. Now, I don't know if it was created in a lab. I just know that most viral and disease experts blame wet markets. They say the close mingling of animals and humans. Well, in these wet markets, these viruses that are contained in many different types of animals are able to interact with humans. And in this case, it's a bat-type SARS virus. So we know that. So it actually is very logical that given that SARS-1 probably came from these wet markets and previous disease outbreaks have also come from nature, why wouldn't this come from nature too? I think if you're going to claim something outrageous, like it was from a lab man-made in China, which is a very, I think, outside of normal science claims, then you should have evidence to back it up. And then she just throws out an 800-year number like that means anything. I don't know where she got that from. That just seems completely made up.
We also now know that NIAID, the department associated with the National Institutes of Health, of which Dr. Anthony Fauci is in control, had already been conducting experiments with the Wuhan lab in the past in regard to coronavirus.
Okay, so this is becoming a very popular and political conspiracy theory, and I don't claim to have the right answer to it. All they're saying here is that there was funding from research organizations in the world and in the United States that funded this Wuhan lab. Okay, I'm not going to argue with that. That's well known. The fact that previous SARS and coronavirus outbreaks have occurred from this area in China means that they have a lab there that is looking and investigating these types of viruses.
In 1999, I was working in Fort Detrick in USAMRIID there, and my job was to teach Ebola how to infect human cells without killing them. Ebola couldn't infect human cells until we took it in the laboratories and taught them.
So here again, another fantastic claim. She claims that she taught Ebola virus how to infect humans. I mean, what hasn't this woman done? She has discovered the cure for AIDS and was suppressed. She discovered the Ebola virus and was suppressed. We need to listen to this woman. No, I call BS.
From this in quite alarming numbers. How do you reconcile that?
It's pretty easy when you see, for me, when you see what the government has done, and that is that they took, quoting Dr. Birx,
we've taken
a very liberal
approach to mortality.
So next she provides evidence for why the coronavirus numbers are so high, and she directly quotes Dr. Birx saying that they're liberal with coronavirus numbers. And this is true, but this is a global pandemic where there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of new deaths. They're also likely underestimating, number one, the true number of infected because tests have lagged, and also because they don't test everyone who dies. It wasn't possible. There wasn't even enough tests until very recently, and in some parts of the country and in the world, there's still not enough tests or adequate testing. This happens with the disease. This is from the Financial Times. It's an amazing look at something called the excess death. What they did is they looked at every country's excess death rate. So they looked at the past few years in this, in March and April, how many people usually died. And then they looked at 2020. And if you look at these graphs and you zoom in on them, for each country, there's a spike up in the number of deaths. Now, why is that happening? It's most likely coronavirus. Are they going to test all of these people? No, it's not really possible. Testing capacity has not been there from the beginning.
It seems so many doctors online that have made their own webcam videos just perplexed by the protocol that the CDC had given them.
Well, last Friday I received a 7-page document that sort of told me that if I had an 86-year-old patient that had pneumonia but was never tested for COVID-19, but sometime after she came down with pneumonia, we learned that she had been exposed to her son who had no symptoms, but later on was identified with COVID-19, that it would be appropriate to diagnose on the death certificate COVID-19.
So again, they're just going into the more inexact, and there's valid criticisms to this. An uncertainty in a new viral pandemic where tests were few and far between up until very recently, to what do you call actually a COVID-19 death?
When I'm writing up my death report, I'm being pressured to add COVID. Why is that?
So this bugs me. This doctor here. And why does he bug me? Because these two doctors here, if you haven't seen this video, it's Dr. Erickson, COVID-19, basically came out and with bad math and bad statistics concluded that coronavirus isn't as bad as everyone's saying, and we all need to open up the economy and don't wear masks. Basically the opposite of what all the medical experts were saying. And the best thing is they got their numbers wrong. They did the calculations wrong. Now, I'm not an expert. I will link to many articles that refute them. And the best thing about these doctors is their own medical societies have sanctioned them, which never happens. And I'll put a link to that below. You can read that their own medical societies are saying, we do not accept what these guys are saying. They're shooting from the hip. They probably have financial interests because they are, own a bunch of clinics, and they're being dishonest, and that they're promoting a false narrative. This is propaganda. And this video went viral and kind of started this. So now we've got Dr. Mikovits' edited video that's promoting a video that has been widely discredited. And you can see how this just keeps snowballing.
Fear is a great way to control people. And sometimes people's ability to think for themselves is paralyzed if they're frightened enough. And that's not where I want people to be. I want people to say, we're going to get through this. I'm going to use my head. I'm going to go to different sources. I'm going to listen to different sources. And I'm going to think for myself.
So this guy is awesome. So I agree 100%. People panic in fear, and that's why these type of videos are going so viral and why those other doctors went viral. There is fear, legitimate fear of this virus, and what we need to do is not panic. We need to prepare, be safe, follow the experts' recommendations in terms of social distancing, mask wearing, washing our hands, and we will get through this. As far as information goes, yes, we should be checking our sources. Yes, we should be listening to various opinions. But no, we should not be believing anyone that just has a slick produced video. Fact check me. I've provided all the facts for everything. I'm a plastic surgeon. I'm not an immunologist. I'm not claiming to be an authority. I'm just merely someone who's seeing these anti-science propaganda videos going viral, and I'm doing my part to address how illogical they are.
I've talked with doctors who have admitted that they are being incentivized to list patients that are sick or have died with COVID-19.
Yeah, $13,000 from Medicare, if you call it COVID-19.
Right now, Medicare has determined that if you have a COVID-19 admission to the hospital, you'll get paid $13,000. If that COVID-19 patient goes on a ventilator, you get $39,000, 3 times as much.
And you've killed them with the ventilator because you gave them the wrong treatment.
So here is, where I'm going to get a bit upset. I have colleagues working in ICUs, in anesthesia, on the front lines of this disease. In some cases, losing their own lives to help others, are doing it for money and are killing people with ventilators. So that is how insulting this woman is to medical professionals. People with common sense are calling frontline doctors and nurses heroes. Tell that to doctors in Italy. Do you know 200 doctors and nurses, more than 200 doctors have lost their lives in Italy? And I don't know what the count is in the United States, but this is disgusting. And people who are sharing this video and sharing this woman's views that support him is why usually when I can't watch these videos the whole way through. Even when I want to debunk them, she's saying that doctors are murderers for money. It's disgusting.
I want to know why Italy was hit so hard.
Italy has a very old population. They're very sick with inflammatory disorders. They got, at the beginning of 2019, an untested new form of influenza vaccine that had 4 different strains of influenza, including the highly pathogenic H1N1. That vaccine was grown in a cell line, a dog cell line. Dogs have lots of coronaviruses, and that's why they're not testing there. You could just say, oh, it was that.
So let me get her logic right on this next whopper. She says that in a response to why Italy got hit so hard, it's because they were vaccinated with a flu vaccine that was made from dogs with H1N1 that it caused them to die from coronavirus. There is absolutely no evidence for this. She doesn't provide any evidence, and any Google search that I did shows that this is not the case. So again, this is like whopper after whopper. This woman needs to work at Burger King.
We know that hydrochloroquine and zinc are working great for patients. And then Fauci comes out and says, well, there's no double-blind controlled placebo study, which, by the way, Dr. Fauci, is there going to be a double-blind controlled placebo?
So this is another social media doctor who went viral with his kind of extreme views on things. Listen, hydroxychloroquine was anecdotally beneficial for some patients at the very beginning, and it provided a little bit of hope. But to say that it worked or to say that it had studies to prove it was a lie at the time. And anyone who put their faith in this miracle cure was not doing it in the way doctors usually do. We need evidence, and we are hesitant with new treatments, and we want to make sure that the first rule applies, is do no harm. We don't just fire medications at people at high doses. And that's what's happened with hydroxychloroquine, is it's proven now, here's a link, to cause a potentially deadly arrhythmia. And some patients died in a study, so they are no longer recommending it.
Dr. Fauci calls that anecdotal
data.
It's not storytelling if we have thousands of pages of data saying it's effective against these families of viruses. This is essential medicine, and they keep it from the people, not.
And this is the best. So she quotes an actual scientist, an actual doctor who knows what he's talking about, calling the data anecdotal, which it was. The first publication, which I'll link here if you're interested, was on a very small, like 20 patients, where they showed azithromycin and hydroxychloroquine showed some benefit. This is the definition of anecdotal. It means there may be an effect, but it's too small and the data is too rough to draw any conclusions. So a real doctor gives a real verdict, anecdotal, and that's why Dr. Fauci is believable.
Only now, but back in autism with our discovery, there was an old antiviral drug, 100-year-old drug called Suramin, on the WHO list of essential medicine. It literally gave kids with autism a voice, a life. What did Bayer and Monsanto do? They took it away from everybody. You couldn't get it to save your life right now, and we tried.
Okay, her next fantastical claim, after discovering the cure for AIDS, discovering making Ebola infectious, that's another one of her whoppers. Now she's saying that she knew about a cure for autism called Suramin that was taken off the market, and even though it cured autism, and that she has tried to bring this back and without success. So I'm gonna have to check this one because this is another giant whopper. Okay, I'm back. I did find, actually, I'm gonna post it right here, an article on Suramin and autism. And it's actually interesting. There is a small study that Suramin did benefit autism in a very small research group. And so again, that's anecdotal evidence. There may be a link and it may be a potential treatment for autism, but they need to do more research. So they are doing more research. I've actually found a Toronto Star article and a University of California, San Diego article that says they are going to be researching this Suramin. So again, everything she has told you is like half-truths. So she's talking about an interesting medication for autism, which actually does exist. I kind of am not believing her anything she says now, but this is actually true. And they are conducting experiments on it. So her second part, where all these shadowy big corporations are stealing a potential cure from autism, is just baloney. They are researching it. And if it does prove beneficial, then they will use it, because that is how medicine works. We prove things. We do no harm first. And then if it works, it becomes mainstream medicine. So again, she's lying to you in this video, or us, since I'm watching it.
A publication last year where the military who had been vaccinated with influenza were more susceptible to coronaviruses. Coronaviruses are in every animal. So if you've ever had a flu vaccine, you were injected with coronaviruses.
So I'm going to have to read this article. I'm going to be back because I don't believe it says what she's saying. Okay, I'm back. I read the paper that she is referencing, and I put it here. So what they found in this Department of Defense study that looked at soldiers who are highly vaccinated population was that if they received the influenza vaccine, they had less chance of having influenza. And they also had less chance of having other respiratory viruses. So it does not support, because it's not even the same coronavirus. So I'm sorry I had to go off on a tangent there, but this is the first paper she provides, and it has nothing to do, or very little, I'd say tangentially, to do with what she's talking about.
Yes. We're not wearing masks. Why is that? Because we understand microbiology, we understand immunology, and we want strong immune systems. Our immune system is used to touching. We share bacteria, staphylococcal, streptococcal bacteria, viruses. We develop an immune response daily to this stuff. When you take that away from me, my immune system drops. As I shelter in place,
Okay, so again, Dr. Erickson, thoroughly discredited. I have links in the bio for why these guys have been discredited. Their own medical societies have disowned their statements. And here they are with an anti-mask agenda, which makes no sense in a global pandemic.
Why would you close the beach? You've got sequences in the soil, in the sand. You've got healing microbes in the ocean, in the salt water. That's insanity.
Like, I don't know where this is going, but she just said there's healing microbes and some other weird pseudoscience terms in the sand and the water. I've never heard a medical doctor say, oh, you've got diabetes? Go eat some sand. Go eat some ocean water. That'll fix you right up. There's no disease, or you name it. I'm just giving diabetes. There's nothing that seawater and ocean is going to cure you of. If you drink seawater, you will die. I think that the cure for coronavirus rests in going to the beach. No, it doesn't. Going to the beach is not a problem in itself. But if thousands of people are on the beach together, ignoring social distancing, that is perfect environment for spread of a respiratory viral illness.
Dissenting voices allowed anymore in this free country, which is something I never thought I would live to see.
Nor would I accept what I've experienced since 2011.
So first of all, dissenting voices are 100% allowed. She's made her money selling this book with her anti-science views. She's making these videos which are going viral, and she's free to put them on any website that she wants. I think that in a time of a global pandemic, misinformation that's as wrong as this from alt news sources is actually dangerous. Because if people follow these guys' recommendations of getting immunity by running out or letting your kids or letting your parents, God forbid, run out and just do what they want, people will die. So I actually think it's good that YouTube and Facebook are starting to crack down on these groups. It is insane, the power of conspiracy theories.
Watching this, and I see a lot of you right here. Why are you not getting loud?
So thank you. I am getting loud, and a lot of this pandemic has made me realize that as a medical professional, I have to fight this misinformation. And I think all medical doctors, this is a call, and nurses, if you see these types of videos that have been debunked on your timeline and your friends and family are sharing, now is the time to speak up. We can no longer let these anti-vaxxers, these anti-science, really propaganda videos go on without saying something.
I'm here to defend you. I'm here to defend my freedoms. I'm here to defend my family's freedoms, my patients' rights to choose what to do with their life.
So he raises a point. It's like your patient's choice to do what they want with their lives. But what if your patient is choosing something that's endangering someone else? And that's, I think, where the fundamental disagreement is between people right now, is where does individual freedom meet the freedom of the community and your society at large? I, for one, think that individual freedoms should be curtailed in times of a pandemic. You shouldn't be free to go out and spread virus. You shouldn't be free to be ignorant and not wash your hands, not wear a mask, and go and potentially kill people. I think those freedoms should be limited in the time of a pandemic. We are in a pandemic. I don't think people should be free to be stupid.
What do you say to the medical professionals that are just beginning to get a glimpse of the depth to which they have been misled and steered away from their oath to do no harm?
So yes, I really want to hear this. I'm a medical professional. You are misleading me. I believe in do no harm. I think you believe in do maximum harm, but I want to hear this answer.
Forgive yourselves. It's the hardest thing to realize for all of us, and is that with all the best intention, we studied, we learned what we thought was the truth. We had no idea that the
You're a medical doctor?
we were being told was true was not true. We've been taught now in our schools a very different science. You don't get funded if you don't speak the party line. You don't get published. That was probably the hardest thing for me to take, is understanding that scientific journals would twist the discovery that should have healed all.
Scientific community have the courage to answer the question.
What?
These diseases might have
He said, what do you have to say to doctors? You're not a doctor. And you're still crying about your fake data that the journalists at the Science Medical Journal said was falsified.
We wake up doctors. in its
That's your
favor.
answer. What do you say to doctors?
But
This is,
every doctor
I'm living in
who
crazy town.
realized they may have been part of the problem.
1 minute. You could
has
do this.
now turned that around to march toward a better society and restore faith in the promise
Okay.
of medicine.
Missed that one.
That's all we can do.
Well, Dr. Mikovits, thank you so much for your time. It's been a real honor to sit here with you, and particularly thank you for your courage.
Thank you, Mickey. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Mikovits, for your time, your bravery. It was so brave how you lied in that research paper and you falsified that data and you had to give it back. And it was also brave how you got fired from your job for lying. And then when you stole that lab equipment and were charged and held in jail for 5 days. It was so brave. And then when you wrote a book and living in denial all these years, and now your views during a pandemic are so valuable. Thank you.
Had the opportunity of serving in 5 administrations. I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today, is that there is no question that there will be a surprise outbreak. The thing we're extraordinarily confident about is that we are going to see this in the next few years. Thank you.
So they close with Dr. Fauci, who's a genius, and they make him look even better in this video, is that many experts and health experts knew a pandemic was only a matter of time. It's happened before. It happened in 1918. It happened in SARS-1. It happened with H1N1. It happened with the Spanish flu. This is not a difficult or a hard prediction to make. Everyone knew a pandemic was coming. No one knew when and how. Anyways, thanks for watching. This was tough. If you keep sending me these controversial viral vids, I think it's my job to respond. I'm not working. I'm doing my part. I'm staying home. I'm staying safe. I'm wearing a mask when I go in public. I'm advising all my friends and family to do the same. We can only flatten the curve if we do this together. Good news is happening. The curve is flattening, and I believe that we're going to get through this. So if you have questions, comments, you want me to do another video, please leave your comments below. Thanks.